site is quite active for your feedback. Now let's cross about to matters health, where the ongoing talks between the national government, county council of governors, and the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers have failed to unlock the impasse over the strike, which enters the 52nd day today. Cook officials who were expected to sign a return to work formula have accused the government of discrimination by allegedly refusing to heed their members' demands.
Solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong.
It is important that we get a permanent and pensionable job, because right now whatever we are getting, it's just something like hand to mouth. The
reason why we are still on strike is because we have not been able to agree in terms of our 10 demands that we presented to the government, and those issues must be addressed for us to feel that we need to go back.
So the other thing, of course, is the issue of the internship. You know, they reduced the pay for the interns. And that is, of course, we have the most grievous issue, and the issue that might keep us out here for a bit longer is the issue of the enhancement of the risk allowance.
The 52nd day as of today, and we'll be keeping tabs on what that happens and how it is affecting medical services across the country. To the corridors of justice, where the High Court has directed the hearing of the case in which a Kenyan woman, the late Agnes Wanjiru, allegedly killed by a British Army officer 13 years ago, to proceed on the 10th of July this year. Justice Lawrence Mugambi orders come after family lawyer Mbiu Kamau and a human rights lobby group told the court that justice had taken too long, citing sabotage from relevant government officers. Ruth Wamboi with the details in our Scales of Justice segments.
When the case came up for mentioning on Tuesday, the High Court was urged to order an expeditious hearing of a petition seeking to establish who killed Agnes Wanjiru.
Only 3 have responded. Today, Attorney General was represented for the first time, and we pointed out to the judge that there has been inordinate delay.
Through its lawyer Mbiu Kamau, the court was informed that neither the Kenyan police nor the British Army Training Unit in Kenya has been able to establish who killed her. Justice Lawrence Mugambi gave parties 14 days to file their responses to the petition and marked the hearing of the case for 10th July this year. The late Agnes Wanjiru is suspected to have been killed by a British Army officer in Nanyuki 13 years ago.
12 years. On that 1st of March, I wrote a letter to my aunt because it is 12 years and it is paining me every time talking about her. And nothing is being done by these governments, the British government and the UK government. What do they want? When do they think that it's the right time to serve us justice? Because now her daughter is at the age now where she understands what happened to her mother, and sometimes she breaks down, and for us it is hard to comfort her that okay, justice will be served one day. When is this one day? We need to know.
Elsewhere, Milimani's trial magistrate court has ordered a case in which 3 suspects have pleaded not guilty to conspiring to defraud a businessman over 10 million Kenya shillings be heard on 12th June this year.
On the miscellaneous being brought before court, 796 of 2024. In Your Honor, when the matter was brought before court, the accused persons were released on a cash bail of 100,000.
According to the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, the suspects Simon Ngigi, Peter Kamau and Irfan Rajwan allegedly pretended they were in a position to sell Michael Yumba Mangeli an excavator crane.
The court issues an order that each of the accused person may be released on similar terms and that's 100,000 shillings. And the cash paid already deposited in court in the miscellaneous application is hereby converted into cash paid in this matter.
The mention of the case will be on 4th June to confirm compliance ahead of the hearing date on 12th June.
To matters business, where Kenya plans to launch a medical tourism strategy as it seeks to tap the multi-billion-dollar niche market. The strategy seeks to reposition Kenya as a leader in medical tourism in Africa, a position currently held by South Africa. Tourism Cabinet Secretary Alfred Mutua says the government will work with the private sector to deepen medical tourism in Kenya. Kenya has been working on a plan to position the country as a medical tourism hub, targeting non-communicable diseases.
A lot of people don't look for services because they are not aware the services are in existence. Once people are aware that those services exist in Kenya, and Kenya is highly ranked this way, then you're able to move forward.
As such, plans are underway to launch the much-awaited medical tourism strategy in partnership with local medical service providers targeting the African continent.
That will mean working also with hotels, working with tour agencies, so that as they come here, they are told, you can get this type of treatment, you can get checked here, 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 and here, so they are aware.
Renal treatment, open heart surgery, and cancer treatment are some of the medical services Kenya will be marketing as it seeks to increase its market share in the global medical tourism niche.
Our mission remains committed to delivering excellent patient outcomes. This will be done through providing exceptional stakeholder experience and superior patient outcomes. This will be delivered through highly engaged patient-centric teams. But what is most important is how do we deliver this sustainably? We are affordable and we are accessible.
In Africa, Kenya faces serious competition from South Africa, Egypt and Mauritius, while globally, the United States, Israel, Germany and India are the leaders in medical tourism. To matters energy, where plans are underway to refurbish or upgrade selected power substations to boost electricity generation from renewable sources. Energy Cabinet Secretary Davis Chirchir says 36 billion shillings renewable energy project also involves setting up a grid battery storage technology to act as a buffer for the national grid.
Kenya targets to shift electricity generation to 100% of total capacity to renewable energy by the year 2030. To actualize this, Kenya is first making the grid resilient, then passing benefits to consumers.
So we are now bringing more solar, bringing in more wind, bringing in battery storage on top of the geothermal we currently have. We'll be working more closely with the European Union. There's some good funding coming in.
This particular project that we launched today is basically to balance out the grid, to make sure that you have less irregularities and blackouts.
The EU stands ready to explore areas for enhanced cooperation with all our partners on how we can better use public resources. And we have already committed 2.3 billion euros to be mobilized in partner countries, in addition to massive domestic efforts.
The program aims to support the green energy transition by promoting green industrialization, as well as subsidizing the use of green energy in cooking.
We want to put a cylinder in every home and see whether we can get LPG at half price.
Chirchir says conducive policies are being implemented to support e-mobility.
I can assure you e-mobility is a great space for Africa. And particularly countries like Kenya, who do not have petrochemical, we do not have our own oil.
To agriculture now, where Kenya is strengthening its preparedness to cope with emergent pests that are threatening banana production. One particular pest that is currently posing a threat to banana production in Eastern Africa is the Fusarium wilt, which can cause up to 100% yield loss in banana and plantain farms.
Kenya is racing against time to mitigate the impact of the fungus Fusarium oxysporum, which is contagious and can cause up to 100% yield loss in banana and plantain farms. KEFI's Managing Director, Professor Theophilus Mutui, said there is need to prevent the fungi from getting to the soil through different simulation exercises to be able to control its prevalence.
Fusarium oxysporum TR4 is a very dangerous pest. We are working very hard with other national plant protection organizations to ensure that this particular pest does not get into the country.
A crackdown has been conducted on distribution of fake seed in different regions, emphasizing that those caught will face the full force of the law.
So we want to urge anybody who is intending to embark on use of fake seeds or selling of fake seeds. We are going to catch up with them and make sure that they are taken to court.
The KBC team has prepared state-of-the-art laboratories and quarantine centers for testing the produce that could be infected, which will help in the mitigation process.
We have our state-of-the-art laboratories at the plant quarantine station, and this particular laboratory will be utilized to receive the materials that could be received, that could be diseased. And then we have the farm where we'll be able to see how we collect the sample, how we do the destruction, and how we carry out other mechanisms.
Simulating what happens in a real-life situation if Fusarium TR4 is detected in a country. How do you respond to it? Who should be involved? What actions need to be taken by the National Plant Protection Organization, for example, KFIS?
So have you insured your business, especially if you're an MSME or SME, or even your home? We'll be giving you why you need to insure your property after this short breather. Do not go away.
This week on What's in Your Kitchen, we have Chef Sean who'll be making for us spaghetti with beef mince and beef sausages. Tunasema hii ni meal ya mabachelors.
Any meal ya mabachelors.
Or people who don't have time in the kitchen.
But
okay.
So for here, just make sure it doesn't stick together. So
it's just for fancy.
Just
right. Kama mtu anataka mabachelor. What would be the best occasion for making such?
Yeah. Okay, basically for me, I usually make this if I don't want to.
Mwalimu, when we are learning with the symbols.
These are equations.
Teachers, you said now they were not letters and they were symbols. Now they are not symbols, now they are questions.
Start explaining right now. I can explain. What is wrong with you, Fal?
Why did you not disclose that you have Solomon's phone? Do you have anything to do with his demise?
Atito, are you going to pay for me? I will refund.
Sakias, learn to be your own man. This meow 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 has to stop. You are not a kitten.
Wait, Muruma, atimdem. Wala tulimalizana na wewe kinajui tafadhali, stop what you're cooking.
Good morning. You're still watching in the headlines on Good Morning Kenya. Now we bring you up to speed with what is happening in business, and right on we're going to bring you up to speed with what is happening in the sporting arena. So we had posed a question: have you insured your business, and why do you need to? Now, the importance of having an insurance cover, especially for small businesses, was among the lessons a Kibra-based entrepreneur learned from the recent flooding experience and across the country. Our reporter Laureen Jakchurchir visited the entrepreneur whose stocks were washed away when River Ngong broke its banks and files this report.
This is River Gong, which in the past few weeks almost claimed lives of those living here in Kibra. We meet Ms. Lambatia, a resident who has been residing in Kibra, adjacent to the overflowing river that shook her business down in just a span of a night. As we head to our house, we are greeted by the trash washed aside by the recent floods. Mesla, who is a single mother, has been selling detergents for 4 years. She says the recent floods wiped away her stock.
Sasa vitu wakati zilienda hivyo, tukawa hatuna options, hatuna pesa, sabuni yenye ilikuwa na hustle ndani ilienda yote na maji. Kujimudu ikakuwa ni ngumu sana.
Although she has been doing business for a while, she says it has been a challenge restarting the business from scratch.
Yenye maji yalianza kuingia, ilifika mpaka katikati, karibu katikati ya nyumba. Na zile sabuni zote zikachanganyikana na maji. Na ukapata zote zilimwagika zikae. Sasa changamoto yenye nilikuwa nayo nilikuwa nimebeba pesa yangu yote yenye nilikuwa nimeweka pale ya biashara.
She says the floods also affected some of her customers who have been forced to reprioritize their expenditure to rebuilding their lives.
Nikaona unapata 3/4 ya wale watu ulipea, unapata kesho yake wengine walienda, either wengine walichomekewa, either wengine venye floods zimekuwa hivi wengi walihama.
Mesla says she now understands the need for insurance and wants insurance companies and agencies to do more to raise awareness, especially among small businesses.
Sijapata kupata mtu wa kunininia hapo. Sasa sijui inafanywa aje unless kama kuna mtu anaweza direct.
She also wants the national and county government to set up a kitty to support businesses affected by natural disasters such as flooding.
Mi ningependa serikali ije ituelekeze. Ndio wakati mwingine nikipata msiba wa maji tena wakati mwingine nisianze na kuona ni kama kuna ugumu wa kuanzisha tena biashara yangu.
With just a scope of Mel's story, it is a call to other business entrepreneurs to secure their jobs through insurance to avoid long-term losses caused by such disasters. Reporting for KBC Channel 1, my name is Lauren Jepchirchir.
And more so, if you had your vehicle, you're a motor vehicle owner and you have not insured or you had not thought of insuring your vehicle against acts of God, which happens to be floods and such, well, it's a high time you rethought that particular stand. We find ourselves in this situation. We rethink our dynamics on what to do, when to do it. To sports, Kenya Defence Forces Mercy Wanjiru Getahi led her teammate Leah Jeruto to a 1-2 finish in the women's 3,000 meter steeplechase when she clocked 9 minutes 45 seconds during the National Athletics Trials held at Ulinzi Complex. Kenya's Police Gladys Komboka emerged second in the women's 10,000 meters race won by Uganda's guest runner Joy Cheptoyek. The two-day event will see Kenya select a team for the Africa Senior Championships to be held in Douala, Cameroon next month.
Gladys Kwamboka finished second 32 minutes 43.4 seconds behind Joy Cheptoyek of Uganda, who won the 10,000 meters race in 32 minutes 31.8 seconds. South Rift's Faith Chepkoech and Amy Chepkemoi from North Rift finished third and fourth respectively.
Haijakuwa rahisi, lakini kulingana na ile mazoezi nimefanya imenirahisishia, imekuwa rahisi kidogo. Nimefurahia kuwakilisha Kenya kwa maana pia ilikuwa target yangu. After kuwakilisha cross country nilisema nitangangana kulingana na ile mazoezi nilikuwa nimefanya na ile uzuri niliona huko, nikasema lazima pia ningangana nikawakilisha Kenya kwa mara ya pili.
KDF's Meshak Babu beat Moses Onyango Wasike from Nairobi in the first semi-final of the 100 meters race, which he won in 10.38 seconds, as Mark Otin of Eastern won the second semi-final in 10.45 seconds, ahead of Justin Mogoi Saboke of KDF, to set up a scintillating finals tomorrow. Kenya Prison's Esther Mbagari outsprinted KDF champion Rukia Nusra in the first semi-finals of the women's 100 meters race in 11.80 seconds, as both sailed through to the finals. Monica Safania of Kenya Police ensured her place too, when she won the second heat in 12.09 seconds. She will be joined in the finals by her police teammate Eunice Kadogo, who won the third heat in 12.01 seconds. Former world champion Timothy Cheruiyot won the third semi-final in 1500 meters race in 3 minutes 47.10 seconds to qualify for the finals with his police teammate Brian Komen, who carried on with his winning ways in the second heat after shining in Doha in 3 minutes 44.68 seconds. Mary Nyaruai from Central won the first heat in the women's 1500 meter semi-finals in 4 minutes 13.79 seconds, as Nancy Cherop won the second heat in 4 minutes 19.6 seconds to advance to the finals tomorrow with, among others, Winnie Jebet, Viola Jebleting, Faith Mwende and Caroline Nyaga. The Kenya National Athletics Championships camp trials will come to an end tomorrow, when the team to the Africa Senior Championship will be selected.
Still on sports, the Kenya National Rugby Sevens team Shujaa are ready in Mirimas, France, where they are set to begin their preparations for the HSBC World Sevens Challengers Series playoffs, which will be held in Madrid at the end of the month. Shujaa, who will fly to Madrid next week, have already settled in the camp after traveling from Munich, where they qualified for the HSBC Sevens Challengers Series playoffs after finishing second in the final standings. They topped Pool C with straight wins to reach the top quarter, so where they narrowly lost to Germany before facing neighbours Uganda in the fifth playoff, which they won 48-0. This was enough to secure their position and proceed to Madrid together with other series winners Uruguay, Chile and Germany. Kenya Lionesses, who are also in Mirimas, will train in a camp finished at 4th position in Poland and 5th overall in the standings, hence falling short of the qualification after losing to Belgium in the bronze match. Belgium proceeds to the playoffs with overall winners China, Poland and Argentina. That puts a cap on the news. So be sure to check our website, that is www.kbc.co.ke, for further details. I hand you over to Mike for the day's panel conversation that is going to be quite filled with matters politics. To you, Mike.
All right, Sante Sana. And now the talk is about the president's visit to the United States. We understand he already has had some engagements and also met Kenyans living in the United States. And one of the things he spoke about is matters how climate change and financial restructuring can be used to address regional security problems, and also how unconstitutional changes of government threaten democratic processes, especially within Africa. These are some of the things I'll be looking to talk about in studio. I'm expecting to be joined by Mwalimu Wilson Sosion, who is the former Secretary General of Kenya Union of Teachers. And also on Zoom, I'll be speaking to Danson Mukile, who is a Kenya diaspora leader in the United States, and also Samuel Cheraisi, and also Professor Phyllis Rotich, and we'll be talking in detail concerning matters the president's visit to the United States. To start with, let me talk. I would want to start with Mr. Danson Mukile, if you can hear me. Yes. The emphasis on shared commitment to governance and democratic values and anti-corruption efforts is one of the things that President Ruto was vocal about. If you can hear me, what's your view on this? Okay, I'm told that Zoom is not ready yet, but let's look at what is happening on our local dailies. And the stories that story that is making headlines in all our local dailies is about the deputy president. The Daily Nation is saying Gachagua opens a Pandora's box. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua recent call for the adoption of the one man, one vote, one shilling mantra in revenue sharing has opened him up for attacks by politicians from his Mount Kenya backyard who ordinarily would not be taking on him publicly. That story is told in detail on page 5, 6, and 8 of the Daily Nation. The same, another story that is making headlines still on the front page of the Daily Nation is that more than 500,000 students miss university college slots. More than 500,000 students who sat the 2023 KCSE examination have not been placed in tertiary institutions, dealing a severe blow to the government's 100% transition policy. That story, you will find it on page 2 of the Daily Nation. They are saying that the Kenya universities and colleges central placement service, KUCCPS, yesterday just 935 out of 890, 654 students eligible for degree, diploma, craft and artisan certificate programs have been placed. Read about that story on page 2 of the Daily Nation. The story that is making on the headlines on the front page of the Star is that Ruto DP axis, why cracks are widening. Gachagua alleges that some individuals are being used to divide Mount Kenya. That story, you will read it on page 6 of the Star newspaper. No longer at ease, why cracks are deepening in Ruto Gachagua axis. DP protests State House's move to sponsor, in quotes, junior MPs to discredit him in Mount Kenya region. That story, you will be reading about it in detail on page 6 of the Star newspaper. And it's speaking to the politics of the mountain, how things are playing out. Remember that recently there was a Limuru 3 conference in Limuru where leaders slammed the deputy president and also enhanced the clarion call for one man, one vote, 1 shilling. That is a story that is making headlines. Now, there's another story on the front page of the Star. Brace for vegetable shortage. Farmers warn as farms flood. Consumers have been warned to brace for a shortage and sharp rise in prices of fresh produce due to destruction caused by the ongoing rains. Farmers from the agriculture-rich area of Kinungi in Naivasha have said immature crops are rotting in the farms. You'll read that story in detail on page 9 of the Star newspaper. MPs probe claims of 3.2 billion spent on KICC renovation. MPs have launched an investigation into these claims that the government spent 3.2 billion to renovate KICC ahead of the Africa Climate Summit last year. This is despite Parliament appropriating only 1.9 billion to refurbish the iconic facility for the global meeting hosted by President William Ruto. You will find that story on page 7 of the Star newspaper. Now, let's look at what is happening on the Standard. Ruto versus the DP. Return of Tanga Tanga. According to the Star, what they are saying is that the president, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua yesterday made a series of stopover rallies at a time his boss is cutting deals in America. His message to his supporters was he is in government to stay and his shares are intact. A feeling of deja vu is imminent as the country is being treated to a season 2 of the Kieleweke versus Tanga Tanga. That story, you will find it or you'll read it in detail on page 4 of the Standard newspaper. Audit hustler jet, Azimio says, as US deny funding trip That story, you'll find it on page 5. President William Ruto's tour of the United States has raised a stink over the hundreds of millions of taxpayers to food for him to sell the country to the world. Yesterday, the opposition said the money used should be accounted for as the host distanced themselves from the huge bill. There's another story here. More taxes will drown the ailing economy. Manufacturers have sent a stark warning to government that should they proceed with the tax proposals in the finance bill, the economy will suffer and efforts to revive it could flop. You will read that story in detail on page 6 of the Standard newspaper. Rebirth of Kieleweka and Tanga factions in Ruto government. Gachagua and his allies have been claiming they are being shortchanged. The protests are akin to President Ruto's claims previously that he was sidelined. That story, you read it in detail on page 4 on the Standard newspaper. Gachagua terms his detractors traitors of Mount Kenya region. That is also a story you will find on page 4 of the Standard newspaper. The Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has fired the first salvo at his political detractors, accusing them of being spies sent to betray Mount Kenya. You know, this is playing out regarding the politics of Mount Kenya and the direction that they need to go. Well, no one has owned up the fact that, no one has owned what seems to be emerging cracks in the mountain, and the politics continue to play out, and we'll be following and keeping you tabs on it as it happens. Probe Ruto's luxury jet trip. Azimio asks House. Opposition terms it as wasteful. The chartering of the luxury Boeing for U.S. tour by the president. U.S. Embassy clarifies that America won't foot the bill, which is about 98 million one way. Well, that story, you will read it in detail on page 5 of the Standard newspaper. There's a photo here on the front page of of the Star newspaper where the president is photographed together with Shaquille O'Neal. Those who know matters to do with NBA know that Shaquille O'Neal was one of the best players in America, and he's blessed with height. Yeah, and well, in studio I'm joined by Mwalimu Wilson Sosion. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good.
Uko salama kabisa? Yes. The president is in the United States. A lot has been happening here, and one of the things that he has emphasized on while on a trip there is a commitment to governance, democratic values, and anti-corruption efforts. What's your take on that?
I think the president is simply underscoring the governance commitment.
Yes.
Promotion of democracy. You know, to promote democracy all over the world is not a simple thing. And the journey that Kenya has traveled in enhancing its democratic values and principles is a long one that needs to be mentioned. And you know, the United States for a long time has been very instrumental in promoting democracy all over the world, the rule of law, and allowing people to democratically elect their leaders. And I think one of the items that the president touched was the free and fair elections that we continue to witness in Kenya over time. And of course, with democracy and governance, which is a mark of freedom, people are able to elect their own leaders, then there is the aspect of economic prosperity and good governance.
Yes.
It is not enough to have good elections. Good governance also is a key value. And looking at Kenya and the aspect of good governance, then there is the element of elimination of corruption. Corruption is a real threat. Where there is bad governance, that's where you find corruption. Where you find corruption is where there is bad governance. And the president needed to underscore that, so that then in our partnership with the United States, there are shared values that we really share, and that our people need to experience that of good democratic governance, good governance, and electoral justice, and elimination of corruption, and then the social equality, social and economic equality, because out of that, then ordinary citizens should be able to enjoy the fruits of such governance.
Joining me from Indiana in the United States is Professor Phyllis Rotich. And one of the things that President Ruto said about is that he talked about how unconstitutional changes of government threaten the democratic gains, especially in some countries within Africa, saying it's a crucial time to reflect on the need to enhance democracy worldwide. What's your views on that?
You know, I think it's critical, especially when you're dealing with relationships, that you have to have policies and democracies that are in order. So when you're partnering with countries, when you're partnering with institutions, you know, this is a long-term relationship. These are long-term partnerships. These are ongoing. These are mutual relationships. So I think it's important that you have the policies and those aligned, so that everybody benefits in both.
I think it's also coming. Yes, it's coming on the backdrop of countries in Africa in the last year. Several countries have experienced coups, including Sudan, Gabon, and others. And he also this speaks. I think it stems from what the president was saying. Stems from this. How can we address these aspects of democracy across Africa? Professor.
Is that okay? I'll let Raisi address that.
Thank you so much, Professor. It's a good question. How can we address the issue of democracy in Africa? In order to address democracy, number one thing is the respect of rule of law. And it's not only just respect of rule of law. To address democracy, it's a cultural thing. It starts with the people embracing or nurturing democracy in themselves. It starts from school. It starts from like when a school selects their leaders. Are those leaders handpicked or that they're elected by the people? And also, because those people who like do coups and all that, they don't come from like out of space. They are a product of the community. They are the product of the nation. So it's a culture of a certain nation. So as on the issue of coups and stuff in Africa, yes, we have experienced some recently, but compared to the 90s, 80s and all, Africa was known as a blood spilling coup after coup after coup. But overall, democracy has entrenched itself in Africa recently. We still have some challenges. We still have some pockets of coups, violence, and overthrows and all that. But overall, Africa has come a long way. And the president addressed that issue very well, especially when he was in Spelman College and in his other addresses. He mentioned that, like Kenya, for example, decisions or the laws of the state, the laws of the parliament, the laws of the county assemblies has to go through what they call public participation. Any decision by the government has to go through, it has to reflect what the wishes of the people through public participation. So you mentioned, in closing, you mentioned the need to address that, especially him being in America, where democracy has thrived for centuries since 1776, is not been smooth either way here. We've had our challenges, but so far, democracy is still the way of life here. Respect for institutions, respect for rule of law is the key here. Rule of law, constitution is bigger than the leader. So thank you so much. I hope I answered that question well, Professor.
Yes. If Danson Mukile can hear me, I want you to talk a little bit about President Ruto linked economic distress, debt distress with change in various climatic change in various countries, and also it's also compounded by unjust international financial structure. Are we going to see a shift or a change after this state visit, owing with regard to this aspect?
Thank you so much. Maybe just to recap and to add what Cheraisa said before I answer the second part is we can strengthen, in Africa countries can strengthen democracy through fair and free elections. And this is one way of bringing trust among the people, using the technologies, and technology works. We have seen how Brazil, for example, has used technology since 1998, and they've been really having a fair election whereby out of millions, over 300 million of people voting can actually, in a day, they can know who is the president. So leveraging technology can really bring fair and free and fair election that will promote democracy, and also our institutions. We have our regional institutions like the EAC, we have our African Union, among other regional institutions that have been set up by the countries. They need to be strengthened and given specific roles and resources as well, so that they can promote democracy. Civil societies as well, they need to be promoted, media as well, so they can be able to freely express their rights without any limitation. Back to your question about the economic distress and in relation to climate change and what the president was addressing. This has been, if you look at Africa, this has been really an issue. And the president has been particular about this conversation about climate change and also the economic distress. We have been seen as countries, known for being poor, we don't have anything, but we really have resources that these other countries do not have. So as the president has been emphasizing that through the climate change, planting trees, as well as putting in measures to prevent exploitation of these natural resources, for sure it will strengthen the economies of these specific countries. And in relation to that as well, developing the climate change policy, it will really bring in a lot of changes on how we view the climate and how actually we can prepare for ourselves, because it has been their conversation, but we have seen through the president some actions have been taken. He has taken the conversation to the global stage, and you're also anticipating that he's going to present such conversation to to President Biden under the leadership in the United States, so that they can also see the need on why they should focus on green energy. Just today, even I was also coming to Washington, D.C., I was able to even to interact with one of the key person who is working with some, she's actually invested some she's working on the project in Nairobi to promote climate change, and by building houses that they are more climate friendly using natural resources as well as technology. So it's an area that can be explored more, and for sure, if climate change can be addressed, then the economic distress will go down because it carries a lot. We can just see what happened to the floods recently in Kenya. It really brought down families. People died, and that's how it can be so destructive. So climate change needs to be addressed, and addressing climate change will be addressing the economy. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll throw the same question to you, Mr. Sosion. Okay. I'll come back to you, Mr. Cheraisi, but let me hear the views of Mr. Sosion concerning the linkage between economic distress with climate change and also international financial structure.
Yeah, those are big conversations. One, economic and debt distress, yes, which the president has always championed, and of course, indeed, is the strongest voice in the continent in reviewing the financial architecture so that it is fair to all. You cannot subject African countries to high interest rates and unfair conditions, and which at the end of the day, the global funding institutions are not fair to the continent, and therefore we cannot witness any meaningful transformation of our economy, and therefore the agitation by the president and open championing so that then the fiscal support to African countries can be done through a completely fair financial architecture framework, so that then we can grow our economies. We can't grow our economies if we are permanently in huge debts with huge interest, and there's little transformation that can be undertaken within the countries. And of course, the president has always argued that even our raw materials within the continent, we should engage in total value addition. Right now, as we are speaking, all the oil that is extracted from Africa is not refined in Africa. It is taken out of Africa, and that's why it's refined, and Africa has to buy it back very expensively. And so the extricating the economy of Africa is key, and therefore discussing all these issues with our global economic partners like the US is key. They must understand our aspirations and where we are headed to, and appreciate our arguments on review of the financial architecture and lending conditions to the African continent. Yeah, the effect of climate change. This sounded like a story a few years ago, but now it's a reality. We are witnessing floods. We are witnessing disasters of great proportions, and of course the climate change has been caused by carbon emitters, the industrial nations, and that is why this is an item of conversation that we must discuss and look for just ways of combating and compensating victims of even climate change. So this is a conversation that really we must advance. What we must do as a country should be able to do. Yes. Those carbon emitters must bear responsibility for the consequences that we are facing in terms of climate change. But then there is that which we must do as a country. An item has been mentioned, and you asked about peace and security and stability in Africa as a foundation of sound economic growth. As we speak now, there are many countries in Africa that are deep in turmoil, in war, absence of peace, and experiencing absence of peace. And of course, the foundation of all this is sound democratic structures in place, that people are able to vote and democratically elect their leaders. And where there is no democracy, there will definitely be a struggle. Human beings are known to struggle, and they struggle for justice. And therefore, the need to promote the democratic practices across countries and guarantee peace is key. And I've given an example of Kenya, that we've struggled over time peacefully. We've struggled for the first, second, and third liberation, you can call it in any way. This is changing political structure, architecture of the country, allowing electoral justice to prevail. If you look at Kenya now, matters of election no longer really take much of ethnic dimension. It's an open thing, and therefore, even embracing technology. And you've seen right from Kriegler, the report after the post-election of 2007, there have been a lot of institutional reforms in the manner of management of elections in this country, that ICT, information and communication technology infrastructure, is taking shape. And in due course, elections will not be a hot issue in the country. And Kenyans will be able to vote freely and elect their leaders. Whoever is elected will be accepted, and those who lose will lose. And therefore, entrenching strong, transparent electoral processes in democracies is key. Is a human right to vote, and it's also a greater human right to recognize the outcomes of the votes, and votes that are not tampered with, and votes that are respected. And that's a big challenge we have in Africa, to promote democracy and allow people to exercise their democratic process. That will give us actually good governance, peace, stability, and prosperity. And I think the president has been very vocal in championing quite a number of things within the continent of Africa, both in terms of the political space, the getting Africa out of economic distress, not only Kenya, because it don't exist in isolation. This must be done right across board. And there's been a great conversation of African continental free trade area, and those are many policies that needs to be brought in place. And therefore, the president's trip, President William Ruto's trip to the US, is not only beneficial to Kenya alone, it is beneficial to the continent.
Absolutely.
And it's one of the greatest trips that all of us are looking at within the continent of Africa, particularly those who believe in strong Pan-Africanism and a prosperous Africa and strong economies that we need to have in our countries.
Absolutely. Let's head over to Georgia, and Mr. Samuel Charaisi, you wanted to add something to this aspect of linking economic distress, climatic change in various countries with the unjust international financial structures.
Yes, I will not dwell much on the climate change. We know any natural disaster, wherever it is, will cause a lot of economic distress. Even here, when there's floods, when there's fires in California, it will cause economic distress. And climate change, as somebody said, is a reality. It's a reality. It's not only about industrial countries, carbon emissions and all that. It's also about us in Kenya. Cutting trees left, center, and right the last few years. We have destroyed forests, we have kicked forests left, center, and right. The nation where there was a forest is like my bald head right now. It's nothing. It's nothing there. So going to financial unjust financial terms and conditions. Key point here is anybody who takes a loan anywhere will not be happy when paying for it. It's painful to pay any loan. So the issue is the loan. The unjustness comes with the way these Bretton Woods institutions, this IMF and all these institutions rate Africa. They rate Africa perpetually as a risk, high risk. So when you are rated high risk, they charge you high interest. And the power of compound interest is the evil genius that the wealthy invented in a long time ago. So they never review the rating for Kenya, for instance. Kenya has been loyally paying its debts. It's never defaulted. So, but they're still rated very high risk, even worse than most Western countries like Greece or somewhere who have defaulted. So that's where the unfairness is. That's where the president has been addressing this rating of African countries blanketly as high-risk borrowers.
All right.
Key point also on his trip is to change the relationship between Africa and USA and others. We are going to change relationship into business relationship, not a loan borrower, not the one who comes and asks for a aid. We are asking for access to their markets for our goods. You saw today there was Mukila was there when they opened our Kenyan retail store here in Atlanta. We are asking for access to their market. We don't want the narrative of us crying over borrowing them money. We are able to make our own money. Just give us access. Just give us access for our products there, not the raw materials. Don't set up very tough conditions, unrealistic conditions, which we cannot. It's not designed for us to even get it. So we are now asking for business relations. When we sell our yes, US is number one export destination for Kenya. That's for sure. But we need more. We are selling barely a quarter of, or even less than 0.00001% of our products to the market, to the huge.
All right. Let me talk to Professor Rotich, and I want you to tell us, what do you think the president believes? Why do you think the president believes these changes will benefit countries like Kenya and the rest of Africa?
Okay, good. Thank you so much. Let me go back to the question that you asked, just to add on something with democracies. I think one of the things that we could do is really increasing the civic education, educating our citizens on their rights. We've done a good job providing the systems and setting up the systems, but what I see is there's a lack of civic education. So that is something that we can enhance. So it's something that we can really drill down to the citizen, to the mwananchi. Because I was in Kenya the other day, for example, and I was asking them questions about the budget. Most of them said, I've not read, I don't know where to find it. It's like they've kind of given up. So if we can engage them, if we can involve every citizen, I know that's one thing that we've done in developed countries is, even at the university levels, we engage and we make sure that each and every person is aware of that. And then coming back to just a question about the economic distress, one thing that I noticed is we could do a better job is with preparing. We do, we are more of reactive. We wait until emergencies happen. Disasters happen anywhere in the world. But if we can develop a culture of preparing for emergencies, making sure we have surplus, making sure we have something at least so that if things like this hit us, then we are not digging or we're not getting into a savings. So that is something that I could say, hey, let's do a better job of being proactive as citizens or being proactive as leaders so that when disasters come in, then we are able to handle it better. One other thing that I noticed too is in terms of unfairness and all that, and I'm not getting to the details. One thing that I've noticed in the grants is we both institutions write grants in the US as well as in Kenya. But some of these things of unfairness, we need to do a better job negotiating. I'll give you an example with grants, with NIH, with federal funding. If you look at the indirect costs that we get in developing countries and in the US, for example, compared to the indirect costs that they give Kenyan institutions, that is very low. And when I asked that question several times, they said, well, the ministry or the government has to negotiate that rate, and that is the expenses that are used at the, to support the grant, to support the activities. So it's both ways that we can all be proactive in different things. So going back to the question that you asked me, is I think there are a lot of benefits from this visit. President has focused on economic prosperity, trade and investment. We have seen him engage for the last 2 days with different organizations. Today he was at Spelman, he was at Tyler Perry, he was at Prosper Africa. He has signed great deals. Actually, they signed 5 million. The president was saying that he spends over 5 million in education. But today they signed an MOU with 5 universities, for example. So they're going to be doing different things. So I see that there are mutual benefits that all countries can benefit. So when these 5 HBCUs, I'm a product of HBC, I've worked in HBCU, they've signed an MOU with 5 institutions where they will work synergistically to find areas of synergy where they can do research to support each other. So in that way, both institutions are benefiting. The institutions in Kenya, as well as those institutions in the US, we're benefiting from the cultural interaction, the diversity, the perspectives of doing things. And that's how we enhance our development. That's how we enhance our economy. When we come together from different cultures, from different perspectives, from different angles to address issues. We also saw that today that they signed the US gave the Kennedy Boyer 3.3 million grant. The US gave Kenya 3.3 million, and that will send 60 students from Kenya to study for a semester at one of the top institutions in the US. That is a huge cultural exposure to our students, and that will be focusing on, that's a huge exposure to our students because they'll have a two-way exchange. So we're looking at a two-way exchange of students. We're looking at a two-way exchange of faculty. We're looking at a two-way exchange of staff. We're looking at, this cultural exposure to technology, exposure to different things, the way we do things, the way different countries do things. And I've seen this from a true example of what our students benefit when they come to AMPATH in Eldoret. And the president actually focused on that today. He used that as an example of a role model. Because what happens there is the doctors from Kenya come to Indiana. People from Indiana go to Kenya. There's mutual benefits in everything. With our in vivo, the store, we call it a store here, but that they opened today. That's a great example of motivation for women. That is a woman-led company. She opened a store in Atlanta today. I love in Vivos. I visit them when I'm in Kenya shop. So that's a role model. That's exposure. That is hiring. That is jobs. That is exchange creating. So there's so many things that I can say over and over again. With again, they gave Kenya, I think with the Dedan Kimathi University, the US gave Kenya 1 million shillings to focus on digital and semiconductors. So that is a partnership between USAID with Dedan Kimathi University that is already collaborating with Penn State on their semiconductors research. So that's huge. Again, that is a transformative. 2 groups of students will come from Dedan Kimathi to come to the US to train on transformative young people, to train young people and to do exchange. So again, across the board, we've seen amazing collaboration, solidifying the friendship that exists between Kenya, that exists between the US, and it will only get better. It will only get better because we're seeing more people coming up, more, young people. Some of us are here. We have people like Danson, young people who are very energetic and pushing this and doing this, Cheraisi. So I think this is really exciting. This is an exciting time. It could not have come at a better time, especially for our country, and especially when you have a leader who is so passionate, who is very passionate about education, about the economy, about health corporations. Yesterday, we saw them at CDC signing agreements where they'll work with Cambria. I mean, it's just amazing, the work that we've seen going on, the relationship that we've seen. And it's exciting. It's really exciting.
All right. Let me engage Mr. Danson Mukile. And President Ruto is expected to speak with U.S. congressmen on matters to do with the danger of poverty and debt on democracy in Africa. What do you hope will be the outcome of this meeting?
Thank you so much. I know he's scheduled to speak to, several senators and also congressmen. And as you have said, there's more is most institutional reforms in Africa, because the president has been so clear that we understand that the United States really supports some of our institutions, including African Union. And the way it has been structured, its delivery has been less because it needs to be reformed. There's more things that African Union and among other regional institutions can deliver to the African continent, more than just what they're doing right now. So we expect the president to pitch that conversation for the continent there, and how the United States can also leverage on the young population in Africa to advance some of these issues in the continent. Because as you all know, our president has been very clear that by 2050, a third of the world will be in Africa. And it's true. If you look at the workforce of Africa as the young people, a graduation rate in Kenya alone, it's very high. Today, I was so happy to see even our CS Machogu releasing the, placement or placing our students to universities. And these are all young people who are going to look for jobs in few years to come. So the president is going to pitch that indeed we need to reform our continental institutions, and also restructure on how we advance, how we look at Africa, not just a way we have been seeing it. I've always been telling people that the way you used to view Africa a few years ago, or even Kenya a few years ago, it's not the same. There's a lot of things that have happened, and the president also, will have a chance to also request some of, the issues, the advancement the Congress can also do the continent in terms of democracy. We have realized that U.S. has been share some values with the Kenya when it comes to democracy. So the president will also advance, among other things, to the leadership of the Senate and the Congress, and to the extent also the private sector, where you'll be able to pitch on why Kenya, why invest in Kenya, and why we should focus on Kenya.
Okay, all right. We are going to talk about something that the president said about Kenya's potential and how we have yet to unlock it, but we'll do that after a short break. Don't go too fast. Stay with us. This is Good Morning Kenya.
anapiga yeye ngumi, anamwambia wewe unaniharibia boma.
Kwa kuwa kuna pahali ulirusha ngumi, sijui kama ni mzee ama ni nini, ngumi ikakwama, ukamata ile inaitwa kimunga.
Hiyo ni nini?
Basi kule.
Wewe ni wa dini gani?
Sema dini yako bwana.
Muhindi.
Nilisikia tu kofi mkuja tu. Nikasikia nimeona marungu. Pia kote nani? Kuja. Wewe. Kuja. Nishikeni.
Mpenzi mtazamaji wa runinga unayoipenda ya KBC Channel 1.
Over the years, we have been at the forefront of broadcast trends to bring you the best of news, entertainment,
how
and sports. You have the power to take your favorite broadcaster to the top. KBC Channel 1 has been nominated in the TV Station of the Year category in the 7th edition of the Kuza ICT Awards.
Favorite TV station.
To vote for KBC via SMS, simply use the short code 15601 and follow the prompts at no cost. Or visit www.kuzaawards.co.ke and follow the registration instructions to vote. KBC Channel 1. Kenya's watching.
It is imperative that we recognize and address some of the unique struggles that are faced by young boys within our borders.
I think that there is a crisis, and it's also the reason why we started the Intentional Moms program.
But I have a belief the crisis starts in our single parents, because I want to speak only for single parents, can start with us.
I realized I didn't have the tools and the skills to raise a boy.
Yes.
Coming under that program really opened my eyes to understand how I can be able to communicate better.
I'd encourage men out there to go out and empower these boys. It could be in a school near you.
Are you a talented artist? Or are you passionate about a topic you want to discuss? But money can be very hard to find for an upcoming artist. Don't worry, Studio Mashinani has got your back. Sign up on ajira.co.ke to book a session with our music and video producers across the country. Work on your music, jingles, spoken words, and even podcasts to realize your dream. All for free. Studio Mashinani, Radani Talent.
Muislamu anapaswa kuwa na imani kwa Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala na kuwa na ihsan, ambayo yamaanisha kumwabudu Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kana kwamba tunamuona, kwa sababu hata kama hatumuoni Allah anatuona.
Leo katika ulimwengu, awe imam, awe ustadh, awe mtu yoyote ambaye anafanya kazi ya Mwenyezi Mungu, unaweza kumpata ndiyo anakuwa na hasira kuliko watu wote katika jamii yao.
Mwalimu, when we are learning with the symbols.
These are equations.
Teachers, you said now they were not letters and they were symbols. Now they are not symbols, now they are questions.
Start explaining right now.
I can explain. What is wrong with you, Fal?
Why did you not disclose that you have Solomon's phone? Do you have anything to do with his demise?
Atito, are you going to pay for me? I will refund.
Sakias, learn to be your own man. This meow has to stop. You are not a kitten.
We, Mrume, Atimdem, wewe tulimalizana na wewe kinyanjui tafadhali, stop what you're cooking.
Thank you for staying with us. My name is Mike Miku. We continue with the analysis of the president's visit to the United States. And one of the things he said yesterday while meeting Kenyans living in the United States is the fact that Kenya has potential, but we are yet to unlock it. Not because Kenyans do not want it, but because leaders do not have not done their part. What is your take on that, Mwalimu Sasian?
Yeah, I think the president is right, and he has mentioned before that the problem of this country is incompetent leadership. Where there is leadership, things work. And where we have institutions manned by incompetent leaders who are corrupt. Two things, incompetent leadership and corruption. When the two combine, we cannot do anything. It actually amounts to destruction to humanity. And the president is very keen that now let's offer leadership. We have very many blueprints in this country, right from independence, that have been benchmarked and poached by Asian countries who have done very well. We have Vision 2030. Vision 2030 is very clear that we must produce the most globally competitive human resource.
Yes.
And of course, over the years, and compared to many countries, the human resource that we have in Kenya, which is a human capital, it's a capital itself, is the most competitive. It's one of the best.
Yes.
And therefore, one of the unexploited potential is even using the human resource alone. The human population can just be a resource.
Yes.
And many manufacturers out there would like to put their investments in Kenya because of the quality of labor and quality of capital. And that quality of labor and quality of capital means jobs for our people. And it means a more prosperous economy. I was looking at the economic survey, for example, that was released the other day, and it's putting at, for example, tourism and hospitality, doing very well at 33%. And you saw the president the other day waived the visa and made Kenya a free visa entry country, and we can see the effect that it has. And we have been very bureaucratic and creating barriers in the past. We are not innovative. We must adapt to the modern demands, and we adapt to circumstances that are going to trigger our economy to grow. We've seen even the money market. Number two is the money market. And the banks are doing very well, reporting huge interest, Safaricom and others. And even Kenya Airways, for the first time, is making profit. What is it that has worked within the last 2 years? That things are, and now we can see the positive trajectory. It is all about leadership. I think when you have selfish leadership that looks at the prosperity of yourself, the prosperity of your relatives, and the prosperity of your tribe, it is what has killed this country. We must think universally and think about humanity. Don't think about those who voted for you and those who did not vote for you. Don't think about the next election. And I like the word the president has been using, that I was not elected to be re-elected in 2027. You are elected to transform the country. So your first business is to transform the country. Every minute matters. Every day matters. Every week matters. So with the little time that we have and the responsibility that we are given by the people, what is it that we can do to transform this country before we even think about elections and who gets what and who is elected to what in any election? I think we must graduate from thinking about election and thinking selfishly about your tribes and rewarding those from your tribes or from your village or those who voted for you. And we think about the wider prosperity of the entire country in terms of true leadership, so that you can exploit the economic potential and opportunities of the country and bring prosperity to everyone. It is possible to create jobs for all Kenyans. It is possible to grow tourism and create one of the biggest service industries that can employ many Kenyans. It is possible to strengthen the money market. It is possible to strengthen the ICT economy infrastructure. It is possible to strengthen manufacturing in the country. It is, and once we strengthen manufacturing and value addition, we'll be triggering production and creating jobs. It is possible to strengthen building and construction sector. It is possible to strengthen and modernize our transport system. That is what we should think, and that is where we should apply our mind. And we should be able to mobilize resources, domestic resources that we are able to use. And how we relate with our partners and with our partners in terms of support and also in terms of business investment. It should be about investment, business investment relationship and movement of goods and movement also of labor. And I think the president is very candid about that and is very consistent about it. Why are we talking about elections in 2027 and not talking about transforming the country? Let us transform the country first, so that 2027 election can find us when we are in the process of transformation, because in any case, there will always be elections and people will be elected. But why can't we set a very strong agenda of competent leadership, transparent leadership, that is devoid of corruption, and we have an economy that is corruption-free, so that then we set a culture of institutional discipline and competencies. That is what the president has been talking about. And if you look at the communication of the president over the last 2 years, he has been very passionate about this. And that is why he has attracted both continental and global attraction in his agenda. And I said it even when I was joining UDA, that the philosophy of the bottom-up is a revolutionary social democrats agenda of social and economic equality that very few leaders can pick and stick to it. And you can see over time, we are beginning to see results, even injecting subsidies to agricultural production. Within a short time, we are now producing food. And probably we can move a step further to strengthen, look at irrigations and goods aggregation, which is now working in the counties. It is in the budget that then we've got economic zones in the counties where the agricultural goods are aggregated and the hard-working farmers can be rewarded with guaranteed prices and sale of their goods. Because we should think about producing and moving our goods to other markets outside Africa, and not moving them as raw, moving them as processed goods. Can our tea farmers begin getting higher prices because we add value to our tea? Can our coffee farmers begin getting competitive prices because we add value to our coffee, and farmers and the rest? We can go on and on. It's all about leadership. Can we stop thinking about ourselves? Can we stop thinking about the next election? Can we stop pursuing the routes of convenience where you fear people, you are intimidated? If you do this, you are going to lose in election 2027. If we have to raise the taxation rates from 14% of the GDP gradually to 22%, so that we mobilize resources to finance the budget to deliver critical services like education to all households, quality health care to all households, I think we'll be doing the right thing. The most important thing for any serious leader, because in leadership you don't lead every day, you lead once and you go. So the most important thing is to bring in transformation. We saw what Kibaki did within a short time. In fact, he said, I'm giving free education. Now you can see the free education that has grown into the most mobilized and the most funded education system anywhere in the continent and globally. You find it here in Kenya. And I think what the president is talking about, and this all of us who are his troops and all of us who are Kenyans and in leadership, whether in government or in opposition, is it not time we think about seriously transforming the country and think about every aspect and every Kenyan enjoying the prosperity of the economy?
In line with that, the president said he will go for what is right to take the country to the right, to its rightful place. So I want to hear the views of Mr. Cheraisi on this aspect of doing what is right to take the country to its rightful place. Mr. Cheraisi?
Yes, thank you so much. That's a good question. Yeah, the right place, you will never be wrong when you do the right thing. And the right thing is not always sweet. the process to the right thing is always painful sometimes. And in this case, it's the taxes. The people are crying about the taxes. But I think the concern, what concerns most people, understandably, is the use of the taxes. You know, it's good to increase taxes to pay down the debt. But also, you know, what I hear from people is we also have to cut down on like exorbitant spending, whether by executive or the legislature or what. So, yeah, the president has a straight path to the right thing. The right thing, as he defined the other day, is pay down the debt. It's so, we'll not go anywhere as a country if 60% or even 80% almost goes by paying unpayable debts, like 800 billion goes to paying the daily continuously. So the president now says, let's bite the bullet. Let's just increase taxes a little bit. But with these taxes, we pay down the debt. If we pay that down, yeah, it's painful, but it's the right thing. But 5 years down the road, we like ourselves. We'll feel good for ourselves as Kenyans, because that money we'll have saved will go to those things that Mr. Soshona said. We'll go to the hospitals, we'll go to the roads, we'll go to free education, we'll go to entrepreneurship and all. But we cannot do it if we be comfortable, just get maybe paying very less in taxes. Most of them, most people pay taxes at the moment actually are the employed. We have a lot out there who are not in the tax bracket. If everyone comes and pay the taxes, actually the rates will even be low, because we'll have raised quite substantial amounts of money, and we'll be able to pay these debts as soon as possible, and we'll not be worrying about unfair IMF, unfair World Bank, and all that. So that's what I heard from the president. Let's do the right thing, especially on the debt. You know, call me Sakayo, that's fine. I can take that, so long as we can pay down this daily. It's like a noose in our neck. All the time we try to breathe, somebody pulls it like this, and then we can't move when.
Right, we are having a problem with your connection.
We are deeply indebted country.
All right. Let me talk to Professor Phyllis, and I want you to tell us what you feel about the president. Human capital in Africa, and we need to leverage it to drive the economy. What's your take on that, Professor Phyllis?
Great. First of all, before I get there, I want to thank Honorable Sosion for the comments that he made. But Honorable, really applaud what you said. I'm really hoping that you can take the lead on that, because it's easier said than done. That is actually one of the things that is killing our country. So I hope you can run with that and champion that in your own ways. Chiraisi, what His Excellency also said is to build Kenya. So it's our responsibility, and I think he called on diaspora to support him by building Kenya and by letting people know that in this country, we are building this country we pay our taxes for everything. So coming back to your workforce question, that's actually an amazing question, because that is in our area in education. We actually focus on making sure that we graduate students who are able. We work on creating a diverse workforce, a workforce that is ready to fill the global positions, a workforce that is global, that has the 21st century skills. So what His Excellency meant is, we have a very a big human workforce, but we have to navigate, we have to invest when you look back at his focus on, we have to invest in clean energy, supply of batteries. He actually today says he's giving credit for those who are clearance for those who are importing electric vehicles, technology. So we have a very young population. We have a youthful Kenya. And this is a young group that is very talented. We have young people who are extremely talented that we really need to invest in them. They have skills and talents that we haven't really nurtured. We haven't really invested in them. And I think that is one of the things that he went to the Tyler Perry Center today to look for opportunities for digital and media and arts to see the partnership and support our young people so that they can get jobs. When they signed the agreement between Dedan Kimathi University, where they'll be working with the US companies to train our young people in semiconductors, that is a very prime area that we have a young workforce, young people to use that. We can train our young people to get into that field. That is a very prime field. We can train our young people to get into semiconductors. We can actually we can have a leading company in Kenya. And I know we have one that is already in the area, and I met with the leader. We can also invest in agriculture and tourism. Things that I really loved is the fact that he said he has committed over 5 million in education. He said 30% of his budget is spent on education. And when he brought 5 vice chancellors today, that to me spoke volume, because these are technocrats. These are professors, these are institutions that are training. I think it was Dedan Kimathi University of Kenya. I think I saw Embu. I don't know who else was there. But the fact that he actually brought it as part of his entourage, because these are people that we've charged them with training our young people, with educating our young people and graduating a workforce that can actually build Kenya. If you had what makes great universities make great differences, that is why we have a Silicon Valley in California, because of Stanford. He said we would not have the Silicon Valley in California without Stanford. So that tells you the impact of education is by him and by a country investing in our education, then we are investing in our workforce. We are investing in training our young people. So I hope that we can continue to make that commitment to that as institutions by, creating those skills and making sure that they have access to higher education or TVET, whatever it is, and then making sure that once they graduate, they get those internships, they get opportunities to travel here to the US for exchange. We have that exchange with faculty and staff and innovative ideas, innovative and engaging activities that would really engage our young people. And our young people are the ones who are the future of tomorrow. So you get me so excited about this, and I will stop there so my colleague can speak. But yes, I
want to engage. And briefly, do you believe that we have the right workforce in the country? Mr. Denson, if you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay.
I think the straight answer is yes, we do. And as Prof was even giving you the highlight of it, and if I was just to do some data on it as well, look at the number of Kenyan universities at the moment. I may not have this right figure, but it should be annually. Prof, you may correct me on this, but could be about 70,000 annually, about approximately 70,000 or over a half, which level they are graduating annually. These are qualified professionals who are ready to work. And we have seen them doing wonders. If you look at some of the ICT infrastructure that have been set up currently in the country, and a good example is eCitizen. eCitizen has been done by young people, well-trained. Look at the current infrastructure for the healthcare that is being worked on. is being worked on by the young people who have been trained that space. So I'll be honest and tell you that for sure we have good resource. I am an example, of those people who have been taught in Kenya with Kenyan professors, and here I am, working in one of the American. So it is very true that Kenya has well-trained skills, but we have to, depending on the area, we need to do more. But for the country, we have, these are the ones lacking, because sometimes the practical part of it is normally a challenge, and exposure to some of the technologies. But for sure, I would say we have of education, and it's being worked on in the ICT part of it. And as the president has been said, nobody else will build Kenya for us. Yes. We ourselves, we will build. America was built by Americans. United Kingdom was built by the British. They did it. The Germans built their Germany. The French did it themselves. We ourselves. We have the human capital resource. We have well-trained young people who are ready. It's just the opportunities and also provision of specific areas. So just to be straight with you, I'll be honest and say we have enough, people work in these areas. They just need opportunity. Look at, for example, the number of teachers we have in Kenya who are graduating annually. There are so many placed. You realize, I don't know, Prof, maybe you can help me. I don't know which year now. Yes. Which year we are now hiring, because you'll find someone be like, they were now hiring 2011, those who finished in 2011. And in 2024, we have another group graduating. Yeah. So it's just that part of it that we have it, it's there, we can tap in, but the opportunities. Yeah. Right. Prof.
Let me add something real quick we are at a risk of not sustaining this if we do not continue to invest in our universities. Right now, our universities are struggling. I was on the Presidential Working Party, the depth of the universities. If we do not invest in our education, in our institutions, by paying our lecturers, paying our institutions, giving them risk, they are able to train productive or good students when they get out there, if only you're a resource. So I want to put that disclaimer to say we can do a better job, or I think we should do a better job our universities, so that our leaders, our leadership in universities do not need to focus on trying to keep up with the debt that is there. Let them pay the lecturers on time, let them give them the research resources, let them give them the spaces and the facilities so that they can train.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for making time for us. We'll be linking with you as long as the president is there in the US. We'll be linking with you. Let me come back to you, Bwana Sosion. There are partnerships in education, especially with the historical black. What is the significance of this?
Yes, one big thing that the president has invested in, and it is not talked about, is education. Yeah. And we saw this right from the development of the manifesto, that we were able to sit with the president and sign a charter on 23rd of June 2022, touching on very total reforms in education. Because if you don't strengthen the education as a social sector so that Kenya can deliver equitable quality education, then we can forget about the quality human resource. And I think this is one area that the president has devoted a lot of his time. If there is an item that has been implemented, is the education charter and the manifesto, and the Presidential Working Party on Education and Reforms, and we now have a virtual university. We can hear is with a number of vice chancellors. This is part of building partnerships and linkages so that then we can incubate skills within the country, and we can implement mount an education system that responds very strongly to the 21st century skills. So innovative and creative citizens in the country. Looking at what the president has done is revised the funding model and deliberate financing of education, deliberate employment of more teachers, and you can see in the budget 9 billion to TSC. That is going to see the conversion of 26,000 teachers to permanent. Employment of teachers is a key priority of the president, and funding of higher education is also a key implementation strategy of the president. And the new funding model will be operating for the second year and with the new cohort of admission. So it will be the TVETs and the TVETs, so that it really works and it equips young Kenyans with skills. Funded and DF, we can see the president has pushed members of parliament to establish an ICT hub in every ward and in every constituency in the country. So these are very transformative agenda. If you want to conquer the world, and I don't think the president is going to wait for 5 years for this to be done. He's very deliberate about it in putting resources, and not just putting resources, engaging the sector players. And we are aware the session of paper will be aligning the envisaged reforms that have been negotiated with Kenyans and agreed, and other pieces of legislations. And we can see the contact engagement of university lecturers, the vice chancellors, in terms of what to do in the universities. And therefore, I think it is not very easy to get a president who is hands-on and who can education sector with the details that the president is doing, and establish global partnership where skills can be exchanged. Because if we don't invest in education, because education will create the human capital. The human capital is what is going to make us competitive. Is what is going to attract manufacturers. And if you look at the US manufacturers would like to establish their businesses here in Kenya for manufacturing. And they're going to do it because of labor and the human resource that we have. So I think this is one area that President Ruto is so committed to invest in and to set the pace, so that going into the future, investment in quality education across the board will not be an option, but it will be a mandatory thing that the government will do, so that we can have a population that is creative, that is competitive, and that which can attract investors to come and invest here. Because one, will have an enviable quality and competitive human resource.
He is injecting 5 billion every year in education.
It's not just 5 billion. If you look at the marginal additions to education overall, about over 650 billion, which is almost 28% of the overall national. And the UNESCO recommendations to education is minimum of 15% of the overall budget and minimum of 6% of the GDP. This we have surpassed. And I have been at the negotiation table and engagements with the president right from the campaigns period and beyond. And find a president who finds it so easy and is flexible enough to allow resources to go to education the way the president is doing. And I think this is what all should have. As we stated earlier on, the problem that we have in Kenya is competent leadership and corruption. We should now begin ensuring that these resources should be able to get down to our learning institutions and transform our learners and guarantee our learners access to quality, equitable education. It is now possible for parents, even in ordinary schools, not. We have seen models being developed in various constituencies by members of parliament, and like Haru constituency and others, it has been replicated, that parents are only able to pay 1,000 shillings for a child to attend a day secondary school, and once that child walks to the school, that child will find quality class, motivated teachers, will find good meals, and will learn in an environment that is acceptable.
Thank you.
And minimum within the minimum international standard. I think we should make Kenya competitive.
Yes.
In
we are very
easiest
passionate
way.
about education. This matters for a very long time, but let us cap those matters right here. Thank you for always making time for us. We have been talking to Mwalimu Sosion, who always is a pleasure to have him on Good. We end this segment. My name is Mike Megwe. Don't go too far. Vivian will be right back with more.
Mpenzi mtazamaji wa runinga unayoipenda ya KBC Channel 1.
Over the years, we have been at the forefront of broadcasting the best of news, entertainment,
How high and how speaking?
and sports. You have the power to take your favorite broadcaster to the top. KBC Channel 1 has been nominated in the TV Station of the Year category in the 7th edition of the Kuza ICT Awards.
Favorite TV station.
To vote for KBC via SMS, simply use the short code 15601 and follow the prompts at no cost. Or visit www.kuzaawards.co.uk. Registration instructions to vote. KBC Channel 1. Kenya's watching.
Tumewakumbuka. Kenya Revenue Authority is writing off penalties and interest on outstanding tax debt for tax periods up to 31st December 2022. Act now. Pay off your outstanding tax debt in easy installments by and watch those penalties and interests vanish. Scan the QR code or visit the KRA website for guidelines on how to apply. You can also call us on 0711 099 999. KRA offices. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to set your tax records right. Anza upya na KRA Tax Amnesty. Kenya Revenue Authority. Tulipe ushuru, tujitegemee.
Mwalimu, when we are learning with the symbols.
These are equations.
Teachers, you said now they were not letters and they were symbols. Now they are not symbols. Now they are questions.
Start explaining right now.
What is wrong with you, Fal?
Why did you not disclose that you have Solomon's phone? Do you have anything to do with his demise?
Atito, are you going to pay for me? I will refund.
Sakias, learn to be your own man. Meow has to stop. You are not a kitten.
We, Mrume, Atimdem, wewe tulimalizana na wewe kinajui tafadhali, stop what you're cooking.
This week on What's in Your Kitchen, we have spaghetti with beef mince and beef sausages. Tunasema hii ni meal ya mabachelors.
Hii ni meal ya mabachelors.
Or in the kitchen.
But
okay.
For here, just make sure it doesn't stick together. So
it's just for fancy.
Just
right. Kama mtu anataka mabachelors. Best occasion for making such.
Yeah. Okay, basically for me, I usually make
Muislamu anapaswa imani kwa Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala na kuwa na ihsan ambayo yamaanisha kumwabudu Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kana kwamba tunamuona, kwa sababu hata kama hatumuoni Allah anatuona.
Awe imam, awe ustadh, awe mtu yoyote ambaye anafanya na kazi ya Mwenyezi Mungu, unaweza kumpata ndiyo anakuwa na hasira kuliko watu wote katika jamii yao.
Good morning, Kenya. My name is Vivian Degwa, and as I had promised you earlier on while we were beginning, I had mentioned that we were going to be having a conversation on giving a second chance to school drop. We are about to do right this very moment. I am joined in studio by Professor Lombo Simba. He is the author in Kenya, Second Chance for School Dropouts book, which I have with me right here. We'll look at it later on. And then by Salome Terra, and she is the County Director, Adult and Continuing Education.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you on board. Now, if we may just tell us what exactly adult learning is. When we talk about adult learning, what are we talking about, Prof?
Okay, adult learning is broad. It's going to school after 21, that's an adult. And therefore, that person cannot be treated like a kid, the way we treat young people. Encourage anybody who is in charge or teaching adults to be aware that you are not just teaching kids. So adult learning school after 21, I would define it that way. I don't know whether my colleague would add to that.
Yes, feel free.
To me, adult learning is lifelong learning. There is no time you can say you've learned everything. So every time, every moment is a learning moment. So any 18 years and above, that is adult learning. But coming to the other side also, there is adult education. And adult education is different from adult learning. I don't know into adult education.
Yes, please, because I actually had a question on the difference between adult learning and adult literacy.
Okay.
Adult literacy is just one package. Adult education is a full-fledged directorate in the Ministry of Education, which offers various packages to adult learners. And when you talk about adults, we are talking about learners who did not get a chance to go through the formal school, or they dropped out of school. And also, in our contest, the Kenyan culture, there are some problems by communities, and it declares what depending on the responsibilities given. So when we talk about adult education, we are talking about one package is providing the 3 R's, that's reading, writing, and numeracy. Where never been to class just needs basic skills to operate. After that, we have where we are now enhancing the skills acquired at a first level of basic literacy. And then after that, we have the continuing education. The continuing education package now deals with having these learners, they're using the formal school curriculum where they are provided with in the past, it has been KCP, so KCP now is over. Then from KCP, after you do your KCP, you now follow the formal channel and proceed. Now that is what we are offering in Kenya as adult education. Community empowerment program where you get things like agriculture, health, civics education, all manner of education, what an adult requires to learn for the purpose of managing their life. That is now community empowerment package.
Okay.
Thank you.
And most of us have heard of, that is Gumbaru.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
Okay.
Yeah.
We're still defining adult literacy
Yeah.
and adult education.
Yeah.
So we used to have a word, there's a word which is Gumbaru.
Yes, Gumbaru.
And going to adult literacy, what is literacy? Literacy is the basics. It is not only learning. I have a granddaughter and I'm teaching literacy. And my wife is learning digital literacy. So if one does not know how to use computers, you need the basics of computers. If you don't know how to read the way Madam Salome said, then you need basics of reading. Now, when adult education or adult literacy was introduced, it was Gumbaru.
Yeah.
And Gumbaru became demonized. That anybody who is going to school, to an adult school, then that person is doing Gumbaru education. Of course, it was supposed, literacy was supposed to be maybe up to standard 3. And then after that, one gets into the main education stream, whereby they would be preparing in the old system for KCPE. Yep.
That reminds me, under our community empowerment, we have multiple literacies. Right now, majority of Kenyans are illiterate about CBC. So they need to be taught how to go about CBC. Majority of Kenyans don't know how to use even their mobile phones. It's just something to do with receiving money and making calls. Yet there's a lot that you can do on that mobile phone. So under the component of multiple literacies, now we have a digital literacy, financial literacy, all manner of education. Yeah.
Okay. We now have gotten, to understand, what exactly we talk about when you're talking about adult learning, which was very important for this conversation because that is where our basis is on. So what is the importance of adult learning? Why are we pushing so much for it?
I would say, first and foremost, education is a human right. And there is no way you'll open the world if you are not having basic skills on how to go about. If you are unable to even administer drugs to your baby, that you do, once the doctor writes 2 times 1, it means you give this child 2 tablets or 2 teaspoonfuls, if it's indicated, if it's liquid, once a day. But you find if somebody doesn't have just that common basic common knowledge, that it's given 2 and again 2, because 2 you've done something wrong. So there are many other things. For example, we are now getting into financial literacy. Adult education is important, even for civics. Civic education, how do we vote? How do we go about our life? There are many policies. We are talking about the country has a constitution that allows us to have public participation. These people have to participate and make informed decisions about a certain level of education. This policy that is being brought on the ground, can we question it? Is it going to be beneficial? Are we supposed to help the government attain what it wants to attain? Goal, the SDG goal 4.4. So adult education is very important because and the wealth, we are the ones who are the custodians of the wealth. If we don't have, then we are going to let the country go into drain.
Yeah, and if I may just give a bit of statistics. Now, research rather shows that 1/3 of secondary school learners do not complete their secondary. And according to a report by UNESCO, close to 35% of Kenyan secondary school students will not complete secondary education by the year 2030. 35% is a huge number. The reasons and factors that contribute to us having such a huge number of school dropouts, and not just school dropouts, but secondary school dropouts in general.
Yeah. there are many reasons. Some could be even cultural. Cultural in the some young girls are being given into marriage when they are still in school. Others could be poverty, and that's a major contributing factor in school dropout. The other one would be just a kid does not get enough motivation to go to school, or discouragement from school, and the reasons could be just so many places where there is mining. Kids think that they can get into mining business or some quick money, only later to realize that it is not possible, and then they realize they may want to go back to school, but the chance closed when they left. So the reasons are many.
Yeah. Madam Salome, maybe according to you, where do you think we're going wrong as a country to have such, secondary school dropouts?
Before I even belabor to answer that, a third not completing. About those who dropped out before they even joined the system. They joined and dropped out along the way. We're talking about 35% right now, will not complete by 2030. Can we go back to that cohort that started class 1? How many high school? How many dropped out? All those ones are outside there. They are clients of adult education.
They've accounted for the ones who started Form 1 but did not get to finish.
Yes, but there are those who started class 1 and never made it to secondary. Where are they? Now, what went wrong? There are very many ills that developing countries are going through. Poverty being one of them, culture, disease. The three enemies we identified at independence are still with us. We have never solved them. And as long as we have not solved them, they'll still come and ail us. And those getting our children into very serious disparate situations. Now we have peer pressure, drug and alcohol abuse, the aids in the internet where they are trying to dub the Western world. All those are bringing problems to these youth, and they are dropping out. And there is no education system in the world that does not have dropouts. Even at university level in Kenya, we have dropouts. And it's tied to very many factors. Be it poverty, be it health issues, be it there are so many ills ailing the African societies.
Before we get into the conversation of how we sort this dropout, what should be done to reduce this number of dropouts?
Asked about what should be done, first and foremost, our education system is very rigid. To the point that today, if I went to school, for example, I'm supposed to be in class by 8, so I should be in school. Let us take a village school, 7 something to around 7:30, I should be in that school. Nobody bothers where I come from, what I am going through, but they expect me to be in school. So when I arrive late, I'm beaten. If you beat me, what makes you think I'll come tomorrow? I'll not be able to come tomorrow. So those are some of the things that we need to look into. And we need to look into so keenly. What is it with the education system? And then I go back to school, and maybe I've repeated. If I repeat one class, I'm laughed at. Because my parents took me to school at a later age, I'm beyond the age. Ninaitwa mama wa shule. Are you seeing the things I'm grappling with? And that we need to, let us not hide ourselves. Those are realities that we are facing, and I think we have to look at various factors. Because they are here with us.
Okay, now those who are out here with us in the community, they didn't get to finish their secondary school education because of all you've mentioned, and Salome as well. I want to give a scenario of there's this young girl, she's in Form 2, brilliant mind, you know, is in a national school actually, but gets, and then she leaves school, of course, to go give birth, and then does not go back to school. So what happens to this girl afterwards? Because this because you're talking about a second chance.
Yes, that's where we're coming in.
Yeah.
The education system in Kenya has been very rigid, and it has been one-way focus. Look at the ones who fall by the wayside. We tell them, pole sana, sisi tunaendelea. And you see in the Ministry of Education, the adult education department is just kind of put at a corner, and really nobody talks. So this girl may want to go back to school, but where does she go back to school? She looks at the situation and she wants to go back to her nearby secondary school. At this time, our education system is so interesting that our education planners can allow a mama to sit in a classroom kids, and they expect that mama to learn. I would have a big problem with that, because this mama, kids, they are not their peers. They cannot play together. And I think we can even bring the interesting example. Was it Maruge? A 3-year-old man who wanted to go back to school. And the system, our education system, has no way for go back to school apart from telling him, okay, go to standard 1.
Yeah, go join those
kids. Yeah. And really, I would challenge the education planners and say it is wrong for you to put an older person in the class. I'll give you an example. There are methods of teaching kids. When I trained as a teacher, you use methods teaching methods according to the ages of the children. Suppose I want to teach numbers. Because out there in the village, we were drawing on the ground with America. You draw a big square, and in that square, you put other 10 squares inside. And then you write number 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 10. And then, standard 1 kids, they want to play and learn. The methods of teaching standard 1 kids is, okay, can you jump to number 6? And the kid jumps to where the square of number 6. Can you jump to number 4? Then the square number 4. What about when you tell man?
You cannot use that same method.
No, because that's to the kids, that is play.
Yeah.
To the older person, who ni utoto.
Exactly. A better word.
Yes.
Yeah, for lack of a better word.
Yes.
It's true, yeah. One thing I would observe is the ministry has tried to come up with where it's taking care of those who have dropped out to get back to school. So far, they're using the policy, but we know when some meet challenges. Yes, we may enforce and say from where we are seated in the office, make sure these children get back to school, make sure this and this is done. I want to look at somebody who dropped out. I also love the boy child who is always left out. The way when he back to school, the teachers may not be able to handle this. Looking at the age of that boy, what are we talking about? The name is system. The name is system is a number. It gives a student a number, and this number allows this student to go through the education system, let's say from level 1 up to the final level. If this boy is coming back, that had that level have left, what are we talking about? Are you not seeing there's still some hiccups? I know as policy makers, challenges, that they are facing, and it's the teachers who should bring these challenges out so that we see how to address this problem effectively. And when we are saying that this person has re-entered school, that they are getting that conducive environment to learn. Something I cannot talk about because I'm not in the formal school. I can only talk about those who have come back to adult education as adult continue. And something maybe we'll have, if I'm given permission, I can tell you, for real, it's a big challenge. They are coming back. They dropped out because of problems, but they are coming back using the same facilities of the primary school, sometimes even the ECD classes, which are not conducive for them. They are being told to pay school fees, following the same curriculum, which is so rigorous for them. Now there is no more KCP. I don't know what is going to happen to them that never did KCP. We are still waiting to get a directive. What I have so many questions. We have these learners, they did not take KCP, but they were in our classes. What are we supposed to do with them? I don't have anything I can tell them because I've not been told what should I do with these learners. Do we have any assessment for them? I don't have. And then you look at the ones who are coming in at secondary level. Yes, we are taking them through the 844 curriculum right now, the high school curriculum. But we are asking ourselves, after 2027, what will happen to those others? Thank you.
Right. And on that note, we'll take a short break, but don't you go too far. We'll be back in a bit to continue with this conversation.
Mswahili anakuambia umbwa wa msasi mkali ni wakali pia. Hivi inamaanisha kwamba wamekwisha nolewa na sasa kinolewacho hupata. Je, watakupa kitu gani?
Mwalimu ni mwangaza, kwani gizani huzagaa. Kweli walimu wetu hawa.
Vijana wengi wanapoingia katika mitandao na kupata mila na desturi tofauti kutoka nchi za ng'ambo, wanaigiza mila hizo pasi na kwamba mila hizo ni kinyume na mila na desturi zao.
Hatari zaidi ni kuwa picha hizo usambaa na kupatikana kwa urahisi, hivyo na kuwafikia vijana.
Ilahi twaanza kwa jina lake waduri, kisha swala na salam. Mwalimu, when we are learning with the symbols.
These are equations.
Teachers, you said now they were not letters and they were symbols. Now they are not symbols, now they are questions.
Start explaining right now.
I can explain what is wrong with you, Fal.
Why did you not disclose that you have so... Do you have anything to do with his demise?
Atito, are you going to pay for me? I will refund.
Sakias, learn to be your own man. This meow 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 has to stop. You are not a kitten.
We, Mrume, Atimdem, wewe tulimalizana na wewe kinyanjui tafadhali, stop what you're cooking.
All right, and we are back. Thank you for staying with us. On what Salome, you were talking about, and I want to pose a question to you, Prof, in line with that, where you were talking about, like, the systems are not really right, you know, for adults who want to go back to school. And for example, they had not done their KCPE exams, they had not done their KCSE exams. So do you mean to say that there are no at all who can accommodate such? do you mean to say that there are no systems put in place for that at the moment in the country?
According to my research, and I did a very comprehensive research on second chance for school dropouts in Kenya, I found that the systems were not there. It's only people that are trying to put somebody, operate a school, and they're calling it adult education or adult education school, but using,
it's actually, you can just show
the book
them.
is a second chance for school dropouts. It's part of my research. And they use the schools to teach the curriculum for kids. I mean the high school or primary school. And there's a big difference, as I mentioned earlier, that there's a difference between teaching an adult and teaching a kid, a young person. So I would say there has been no real system which has that way to have people who drop out of school could come back and go to school. And this has happened for many years. During my time, I trained as a primary school teacher, a P1, and they told me if I want to go to university, I have to go back and do the Form 6 exam, and they disregarded my 2-year training. I have to go and take Form 6 exam and then qualify to go to university. That is not right. So what did I do? I had to look for systems or other places which have good systems which can allow somebody like me to go back to school. And I had to use American system who opened the door for me to do my bachelor's. And then from that, to go ahead and do the other studies. Just while we are there, my wife, and I have her permission, because she allowed me to put it in this book. So if it's in this book, it is public knowledge. My wife dropped out of, from school in Form 2. That's far, isn't it? So how would such a person get a second chance? Fortunately, those days they were training nurses and they were looking for anybody who care whether you're finished high school or not, completed. So although she had failed in Form 2, they put her into a nursing school, and she became a nurse. Then she realized that she could go for a counseling course, a diploma, 2 years. But interestingly, a university, I'm not going to name them, I don't want to shame any university, and it's not them. When she wanted to go back to study a degree, to do a degree, they said, no, where's your Form 4 certificate? Somebody has gotten a diploma, and we know what a diploma is in this country, and from a university. If I get a diploma from University of Nairobi, then it means it is credible, isn't it?
Yeah,
but they say, no, we want your Form 4 certificate. And I told my wife, okay, you're going to beat them in their own game. And what did I do? I wrote a letter asking them, which Form 4 certificate or your diploma, which you have given to me. That was my wife writing. Then I wrote that and I gave her to sign. She signed, and of course it was challenging them. The registrar called her, and she went and did a course, a BA in psychology, completed with good grades, 3.4. Then, now, she education stream. So we go to America, and in December last year, she graduated with a master's in clinical social work. Not many people are going to have those chances. Majority of them are going to be on the or to fall on the wayside.
Yeah, and oftentimes in the country, unfortunately, Form 4 or secondary school drop years.
Yes.
But from the story you've just told, if given a chance, they can still amount to I mean, something, and people who would be of help to the community as well. Maybe to you, Salome, you know, as the County Director for Adult and Continuing Education in the country, how are we aligning these adult learners, you know, to gain access to vocational training institutions or even higher line education in general?
Just to observe, necessity is the mother of invention. When you're faced with challenges, you try to knock this door and you're being told for you to enter, you must have this type of key. You have to look for a way. So in adult education, somewhere in the late 99 to around 2000, we began the issue of offering primary education to our adult learners, because some of and they're being told, for you to work with us, we need to see your KCP certificate. So we started offering continuing education at primary level for these people, and we had various have gone through that until they closed KCP last year. People managed to go through that, and when an adult was able to go through the formal school, maybe 2-3 years, and do KCP, it motivated them now to go for the secondary, where we have now the continuing education still ongoing. In the continuing education secondary, like in Nairobi, we have private and public. For the public, I have 13 teachers in the whole of Nairobi County. We have an adult public secondary at Pangani Primary School. They're using the primary school facilities that have been that are dilapidated. We are always given those facilities that are dilapidated. And if we happen to get a better facility in any primary school, we are told adult learners pay a little money, they are charged some fees. And you see, like that center only has 6 teachers. There are very many centers of that type in this county. We have one in Makadara, Our Lady of Visitation, which has only 3 teachers, and the 3 teachers are not able to handle all the subject areas. So it means we have to bring on board other teachers. In the whole country, we have only 100 who are employed by the government. And therefore, private providers are coming in. Go to East on. We have various other youths and others learning secondary. Go to Stare, just in town here, we have private providers who have these centers providing tuition and evening classes to these adult learners who are either working or they have been told you cannot get a promotion unless you have this level of certificate. So, but we are using the formal system. They are doing the same KCSE, they register secondary school students. So we can't really say that it's our system, but we had to come up with a way, because earlier on we had worked on a curriculum with the KICD, ABET 1. ABET 1 is up to, let's say, level 4. Then ABET 2 is from level 4 to around class 8, class 6. Then ABET 3 was from level, it was catering for 7. That level now, NEC was supposed to have these exams or assessments for these learners. It never took up. It never took off.
That curriculum?
I mean, it never took off. There are only a few copies. We only deal with ABET 1 is what we are delivering. Meaning something somewhere. You know, even our directorate has been moving from one ministry to the other until 2008 when we were taken to the Ministry of Education. But now we have that proper a curriculum to be followed. So even our curriculum now is outdated. It's over 10 years. And you know, the cycle of our curriculum is 10 years. It should have been reviewed. So we are still now, our curriculum is that of ABET 1. This ABET 2 and ABET 3 was never piloted. It was never tested. We even had the post-literacy curriculum, which is supposed to cater for these ones after they have learned the 3 R's. It was piloted in very few sub-counties. It was a project by GT said it ended there. And the curriculum is there. It needs a review. So you can see we don't have our own clear pathway. Even in the CBC, we have now been put in the structure, but we don't even have that clear curriculum. But we are believing the review that will be coming, we need to get what should be done. We need to get things right. If we don't get things right,
yeah, Prof, you seem to have something.
Yes,
in mind.
I'm looking at, and there are many people we are losing on the way in our education system. And we're saying it cannot just be pushed at the corner. So when I was doing my research on second chance, I found that every country, and I did a global survey of what in South Africa, in UK, in Switzerland, in Korea. I did a whole survey and found that there's always a policy on how one can go back to school. So we are looking at a situation whereby we can delink adult learners from the normal, regular education and have something different. So I'm saying I have a way. During my studies, I saw that there could be a way, and I would be happy to share with the ministry, and I'm glad that Madam Salome is here. I would be happy to say this is a way to help our people. That's why I did all this research, because a lot of people are just being left, and we make it, they are losers, but they can be directed and become useful members of the society.
I agree with you. Maybe Madam Salome, what is hindering us from having such programs in the country?
You know, everything in this country starts at the policy level. What does this policy spell out? If you look at our policy in adult education, it was done in 2010. How many years down the line?
14.
It has been overtaken by events. It needs a review. Says he has a way. If you have a solution, Professor, I would love us, because I love those people who come up and say, I have a solution, not to keep asking me, this is a problem, how do we solve it? And I wouldn't mind. I am even aware the president likes people who come, we have identified this is the problem and this is the solution. So if this gentleman is brought on board, the review of the curriculum and that, we would love to have a solution to this menace that has existed since 1979 when we were decreed, because the type of illiterates I'm dealing with, they are not the ones that were identified as independent, meaning there's some gap the policy that has not addressed. So if that is addressed, and we have, because in adult education the policy says it's a shared responsibility. If we could have like minds like him plus others who are outside there to come and help us walk this path and solve and for all, then I'll be happy. But I believe our problem comes at policy, funding, and once those two are not handled, then we are not able, because looking at our statistics, we are not doing well. In 1979, when we started, we had 3,000 full-time instructors. We don't call them teachers, because in adult education you cannot teach an adult. You only facilitate this person to acquire more knowledge. Right now we are doing very bad. We have 864 in the whole country, and as I'm talking, even maybe some have retired between last month and now. The figures may be very low, and out of the 864, 100 are those teachers who just formal school teachers who are handling the continuing education program. So if they are still using, they are not CBC teachers, they have not been retooled, they are using the old system method. Looking even at the officers, we have remained very few. So there is a lot that needs to be done. And if we can handle this problem once and for all, and just say within 10 years, we should have seen the results within maybe the next 3 years. If we review and start, let's say next year, let them measure our achievements year by year, and we should tell them in the next 5 years we should be here, and in the next 10 years this problem of having re-entry and or having this problem of we should be a history. Because I was looking at his book yesterday night when I interacted with it. What is happening in Britain is beautiful. What is happening in Korea is beautiful. Why is it that we are being left out? And when, like now in the CBC, we don't have the structure is there, but we haven't started implementing. Sisi tumekaa huko adult, tumekaa kwa bench naendelea na basic literacy, and that is not what our learners want. They are going ahead. When they reach the end is when they'll start coming for us. What will have happened to these dropouts who are coming this side? So the faster we do it, the better.
Yeah, and while on that, the problem is also the methodology. I think we need to mention that. When teachers go to school, they are taught to teach young children. There's a word which is called pedagogy. Pedagogy is a word from pediatrics. It's a word which means teaching children. And Vivian, maybe you have gone to school, even in college, and you have seen a professor or a lecturer treating you like a kid. I don't know whether that has been your experience. It was my experience. Because the training we have in this country, it trains teachers only up to teach secondary schools, and those are children, and therefore they use pedagogy. Now, when you're teaching adults, you're teaching a different person, and the word andragogy. Andragogy means that these are adults who come to your class by choice. They are not there because you push them. They are there by choice, and we don't even need to motivate them because they are self-directed. Therefore, even the instructors we are having in these learning centers, they have to teach adults. And therefore, instead of us getting good results, some of them realize, oh, when I was doing my research, I sat in a classroom, some of those classrooms, and a teacher found a student was having a phone. You don't know what is happening with this student. Maybe her kid is sick, and stand up so-and-so, walk out, go out, you know.
You can't treat them the same.
No, you don't.
Learners.
Yeah, but that is just some of the problems we are having, and we're saying when we delink adult education from the main high school, primary and high school system, then we can come up with training. And even in this book, I've given examples of how to teach such people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if I you to give your final remarks in the shortest of words possible.
Thank you very much. One thing I would like to observe, it is true, we have to accept where we have failed. And my desire is that let us do things straight. History will judge us. Let us have a system or a pathway to cater for the dropouts, because if we don't, there are so many, there are even more than the learned. Because dropping out even if you drop out at university and you've not finished, in future when you reach a point and you cannot do 1, 2, 3, you're still a dropout. If we can address this wholesomely during this review and during this time we are having educational system being changed, then we shall be doing justice. We need to bring everybody on board and even have the feel of to tell us how they want us to go about it. And if that is done, then justice will be done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Solomon.
Mine is just to talk to the policymakers in this country. It is good to be holistic and address all the different sectors we have in education. And therefore, it means that once the policymakers look at school dropouts and ask themselves, how can we mitigate without trying to patch? What we have been doing is patching the problem. We need to have a proper overhaul, a departure, whereby we don't have to keep on changing even when the school systems change. When I was doing my research, I realized that some countries, they put their adult or second chance for their school dropouts. Although the curriculum in the other systems are changing, this continues because it has been linked. There could be some adjustments on the curriculum, but what I'm saying is, yes, let's have a policy which addresses adult learners or gives people a second chance. after they drop out of school. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you so much, Madam Salome, for gracing our show today. We really appreciate that you are big on this conversation. Now, this is where we call it a wrap. And if I may just say what I've picked from this conversation, no one should be written off. Everyone deserves a second chance. And this may simply mean a second chance at education to allow you to have that second chance at life. My name is Vivian Dagwa. Until next time, do enjoy the rest of your viewing. Goodbye.
On KBC Channel 1, we are a TV station like no other. Get entertainment.
Yes, indeed.
Feel the passion.
Will you promise me?
I swear that you will never lose me. I can't get married to you.
I'm sure you knew about it. That's why you're making fun of me.
Experience the drama.
Get out.
Who is the man in this one?
And the laughter. Move to the beat.
We are live from Broadcasting House.
And get informed on the latest happenings. KBC Channel 1.
Wow. Yeah!
We are the full package. Watching.
Thank you very much for joining us.
For 60 years, the African Development Bank Group has played an integral part in Africa's socio-economic transformation. From the 27th to the 31st of the African Development Bank Group will host its 2024 annual meetings at the Kenyatta International Convention Center in Nairobi, Kenya. This year's theme will be Africa's Transformation, the African Development Bank Group, and Reform of the Global Financial Architecture. The high-level meetings will be hosted by the President of Kenya, His Excellency Honorable Dr. William Ruto, and the President of the African Development Bank Group, Akinwumi Adesina, and will convene African leaders, development partners, private sector actors, civil society organizations, youth, among other stakeholders. This event will be live on KBC.
This week on What's in Your Kitchen, we have Chef Sean who'll be making for us spaghetti with beef mince and beef sausages. Tunasema hii ni meal ya mabachelors.
Hii ni meal ya mabachelors.
Or people who don't in the kitchen.
But
okay.
For here, just make sure it doesn't stick together. So
It's just for fancy.
Just
right? Kama mtu anataka mabachelor. What would be the best occasion for making such?
Yeah. Okay, basically for me, I usually make this if I don't want to.
Good morning to you, our dear viewers, and welcome to the live proceedings of the Senate. This being a Wednesday morning sitting dated May 22nd, the year being 2024. Equally, a broadcast brought to you courtesy of the collaboration between the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation and Broadcasting Unit. Allow me to take you direct to the agenda for the day this morning, where according to the pursuant of the standing orders of the Senate, Wednesday morning, we usually have cabinet secretaries answer questions in plenary. We expect CS for National Treasury, the CS for Environment, and the CS for Agriculture to answer questions from senators. CS Oipantuya, the CS for Environment, will be answering questions from the Senator for Kisumu County, Senator Professor Tom Ojenda, who wants the Cabinet Secretary for Environment to elaborate initiatives put in place both nationally and in each of the county, considering the diverse topography and unique environment, as well as climate change needs of each county. The CS will also be required to explain the measures put in place to enhance the capacity of each county government to implement the climate change initiatives in their respective counties, and also provide progress reports on the implementation of the climate change initiatives in the 47 counties. The Senator for Nairobi County, Senator Edwin Sifuna, wants the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Economic Planning, CS Njuguna Ndungu, to tell the senators what occasioned the failure by the e-citizen digital platform to process as well as reflect payments made by some institutions such as the National Health Insurance Fund, popularly known as, and could the Cabinet Secretary explain steps are being taken to remedy the situation? The Senator for Nairobi also wants the CS to explain where does the convenience fee charged and all other payments that fail to reflect. And finally, a report on the safety as well as efficiency, efficacy and reliability of the e-citizen digital platform payments. And this is in light of the numerous complaints of delays and technical issues that followed the onboarding of significant number of government services on the platform. The CS Agriculture and Matches Livestock Development, Honorable Mithika Linturi, is also expected before the House this morning. The CS for Agriculture will be answering questions from Senator Joyce Koril, a nominated member, as well as a Senator for Tana River County, Senator Danson Mungatana. It has to do with government monetization, monitoring of the entire meat supply in the country, as well as slaughter chains. Allow me to hand you over for this live broadcast of the Senate, presided over by the Deputy Speaker of the Senate, Honorable Kathure Murungi. Enjoy your viewing and good morning.
Let's pray. Almighty God, we beseech you to build with abundant favor and blessings as your servants whom have been pleased in this republic. We seek guidance to treat and consider all matters that shall come under the deliberation in so just and faithful manner as to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen. Clerk, do you have quorum? Okay. Ring the quorum bell for 10 minutes.
The Deputy Speaker of the Senate, Honorable Thuri Murongi, currently presiding over the business of the Senate, has directed the Sergeant at Arms to ring the quorum bell for 10 minutes. This has been occasioned by the mere fact that the House is not curated according to the provisions of the House standing orders on matters quorum that require that at least 15 senators are in the chamber at any particular time when the House is sitting. As we await for that quorum to be attained, and further, allow me to take you through the order paper this morning. The CS for Agriculture is expected to appear before the Senate plenary this morning. And among the questions that the CS for Agriculture will be expected to answer is some questions for Kirinyaga County, Senator James Murango, who wants the CS for Agriculture to tell the House what measures is the government taking to ensure that Kenya's coffee and coffee products comply with the requirement of the European Union deforestation regulations, that coffee not be sourced from areas affected by deforestation or forest degradation after 30th of December 2024. The CS question on matters coffee is also required to tell the House which government institution is leading the efforts to collect the geolocation coordinates of the coffee producing farms required by the EU regulations, as well as state which government institution is responsible for the managing of geolocation information, and state measures that have been put in place to ensure its accessibility, access by unauthorized parties. The CS for Agriculture is also expected to answer questions from nominated Senator Joyce Correll, who wants the CS to tell the House the measures put in place to ensure that all meat sold in Kenya meets the requisite standards for the human consumption. The measures put in place to ensure of meat certified as unfit for human consumption and guarantee that carcasses of already dead animals are not slaughtered and sold to unsuspecting Kenyans. The CS for Agriculture will also be answering questions by the Senator for Tana Mungatana, who wants the CS to tell the House whether the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock has assessed the losses suffered by both crop and livestock farmers, particularly in Tana River County, due to the recent heavy rainfall experienced across the country, and if so, what are the findings? A question in regards to losses incurred by farmers in Tana River County is that does the government have plans to compensate the farmers for the losses suffered? And if so, could the CS for Agriculture indicate the budgetary allocation made for the said purpose and explain the measures, if any, being put in place to ensure that in a timely manner and to the right individuals? Those are the question time segment questions that will be answered by various cabinet secretaries this morning. We'll be awaiting communication from the Speaker in regards to which cabinet secretaries are present to answer to the question members of the Senate. Away from the question time, the declaration of cattle rustling and banditry